We're back for part two, and the focus is now on vulnerability and busting some myths around vulnerability and redefining it through the lens of resilience and autonomy. So how is vulnerability currently being defined? What are some myths out there? What are some thoughts? What are you hearing out there in the field? What is it to be vulnerable? What does it look like?
And accept other people's conditions.
Say that again, Paul.
You have to be vulnerable when you accept other people's conditions for living together with your spouse, or with going out together with friends. Like, yeah, you need to make yourself vulnerable to boundaries people acting in, to what conditions they put on you. Yeah, basically.
What does it mean to be vulnerable? What does vulnerability look like?
Well, that you're taking down your defense.
Okay, taking down defenses. Okay, great. Yeah. What else?
Oh, well, taking no defenses, potentially being harmed, trusting, in order to not be harmed, trusting that certain guidelines will be held up.
Okay.
And at the same time, kind of opening up for change.
Okay, so opening, taking down defenses, completely trusting something else, exposing yourself to possible harm. Yeah, you were going to add something in there, Alina?
Exposing, this is what
exposing. I was. Now, okay, so wait a minute. Why the hell would I want to do that? That sounds dangerous.
It is dangerous.
Why is that good? Why is that honorable? Why is that heroic? Because it gets bandied about a lot. I mean, you go on TED Talks and it's all about, vulnerability, how it's so great. So why? Why is that to be admired?
Because you can only connect to source and to the essence of the moment when you're not making it about your ego persona. So,
okay, now they don't talk about source, but what they're saying is don't be egotistical. So if I'm not being egotistical, what does that inspire in you?
Well, this is a doorway to creativity. So I'm not there like to protect myself. I'm not there in fear, but which are there because of reasons, possibly. Because I don't want to be vulnerable, I'm using shields and weapons and boundaries and lots of gameplay mechanisms around me in order to not get harmed. So I can be a perfect.
What I'm seeing, or what I'm getting from what you're saying is actually, so if I put my ego away, take off my mask, bring down my defenses, I'm lowering my status. I'm coming down to your level. I'm being an equal because I'm showing you that I'm open, I'm listening, and I'm giving you control. What's that going to do? Boost your ego, your confidence, your status. So when you're demanding that I be more vulnerable with, I be more vulnerable with you, you're asking me to give up control so you can take control. I hear that as a manipulation, just so you can feel more comfortable with me. Do you understand? Because you may have an idea that I'm somehow higher than, or more powerful than, or smarter than, and you're going to say, you're not being vulnerable enough. And I say, how about you be more resilient? Because you're asking me to take down all my defenses, lay myself at your feet to do what? It's unpredictable. That's dangerous because you're asking me to do that from a fragile place, not a resilient place. And when you're fragile and fearful, man, anything could happen. It would be stupid of me to be vulnerable with you. Does that make any logical sense?
Well, no person connected to their own resilience source would ask anybody else to be more vulnerable,
There you
or
go.
to be
You
more,
just nailed it. If I'm resilient,
yeah,
meaning then from what we talked about, connected to source, authentic, resilient, there's an unconditional place. I don't need you to be in any way for me to continue being my way. So I don't need to ask you to be vulnerable. I don't need to expect you to take down your defenses. Do you understand? So this is where vulnerability and authenticity get collapsed together in these myths. Like, in order to be authentic, you need to be vulnerable. When you are vulnerable, now you're authentic. So that means what? In order to be authentic, now I need to take down all my defenses, meaning I've lowered myself to your fragile level. Now you feel more comfortable. Now you can connect with me because I've got no possible way of attacking you. Do you understand? You feel more comfortable. You want to take away all my armor and ability to attack or criticize. Do you understand? So you're asking me to be vulnerable and you're unwilling to be vulnerable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If I show my fragility, then you'll reward me with saying that's a sign of strength. How do I show fragility? I show all my tears. I show my emotions. I show my fragility. Like, oh, this is so scary for me. I can't believe I'm actually telling you this or showing you this. I'm being brave and courageous. So I'm getting rewarded for being defenseless. That's being celebrated. That's being heroized, I would say, or worshipped. Because when I'm raw, I'm suddenly inspiring. I got to wear my heart on my sleeve, tell you all my secrets. What is this doing? It's giving you an incredible amount of power. I have no masks. I have no boundaries. I'm completely giving myself over to you. Now you have complete control. I could be potentially victimized by you. Now, you could be asking me to be vulnerable. So I got to do all these things. And then you can say, now you're being authentic. And now I feel I can connect with you. Now we can work together. Well, because it's now on your terms. There is not an ounce of generosity in that. And what have I done? Given everything away. After I've done that, you can turn around, walk away, and backstab me. There's nothing I can do. Do you understand? So I've given you all the power. Now, then some people will say, yeah, but that's so brave and courageous and admirable. Well, now, if I am doing this, making myself vulnerable, what am I expecting in return? Admiration, celebration, recognition, compassion. For you to say, oh, you're so brave and courageous to say that. How could I ever criticize you now? So I could weaponize my own vulnerability with the expectation that you will not attack because I've laid all my weapons down and I've said, you know, how could you attack a vulnerable, innocent human being? You now need to be nice to me because I've been nice to you. I'm doing a pay for play thing. Do you understand what I mean by pay for play? I'm giving you this whole show, paying out. Now I'm expecting the return on that investment, meaning don't attack, don't shoot, don't criticize. So that's not real vulnerability, because if I'm truly being vulnerable, I am open to criticism. I'm making myself exposed to all of that. Yet when I see people doing this, there's an expectation that they're going to get acknowledged for bravery. And there's a complete look of surprise if anyone says something negative or critical. And they say, how could you say that? My heart is on the table. Well, because I can. You've opened yourself to it. And it's not coming from a necessarily malevolent place, because I could say, thank you for your story and for your sharing. That felt highly manipulative. What? How dare? Who? I've suffered. So again, I'm indulging in pain for reward. Does this make sense what I'm saying? This sounds maybe very cruel and upsetting what I'm saying. I don't know. But I'm showing you how vulnerability can get weaponized
Now
from either
they're
end.
actually real relationships in alliance, in management, codependencies.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's define vulnerable. What is it to be vulnerable? It is a state of being exposed where you are susceptible to injury, attack, criticism, persuasion, temptation. You're open to all influences. You're defenseless. There is no armor. There are no weapons here. You are capable of being wounded or hurt. Okay. And it comes from the Latin vulnerare, to wound, or vulnus, which is a wound. So when you are vulnerable, you are capable of being wounded. You're indulging in the wound. Okay. You are an open wound. So what does that have to do with leadership? What does that have to do with authenticity? Because it's celebrated a lot. Thoughts? Answers?
It's reminds me of what I said in the beginning. Like, people want you to be vulnerable in the first place so that you go on their way without intercepting in their way of doing it, while still adding to it. Um, and I think that it is definitely possible to do that and be vulnerable when we use it as a threshold, as a ladder to authentic behavior. Only being vulnerable in terms of, okay, like eat me, wouldn't be the right way. It would be like the person who is punishing himself. But when you're doing it in an authentic way, you're still selfless, but you're guiding your behavior not by the gameplay. You're using their boundaries as something that informs you, while kind of intercepting what source actually wants to express here, and helping the others to get more in that way, in the way of source, while not lying to yourself, or not distorting yourself when you follow the rules. I hope I could compress it a little bit.
Yeah, the thing I keep thinking about here is, why would I want to expose myself to harm? What do I have to gain there? Why would I do that? And why do people want me to do that? One of the answers I'll come up with, when there is a demand that a leader be vulnerable, when that's weaponized or used in the wrong way, let's say, or a manipulative way, it's that they want the leader to come down to their own level of fragility.
It doesn't make sense. If a person can lead in that way, and people would demand it of him, he would be better off personally to go somewhere else, where people can already lead, where he then can just add up with people on his eye level. So the only reason why he would do it for others is out of generosity. And because he somehow thinks that in the future, it will make a lot of sense guiding these people towards their own source.
You are talking about Jesus.
Well, and there's, yeah, And there's, I think, misinterpretations of that. What is martyrdom? What is vulnerability? We're going to show you game and dream and the differences. And vulnerability looks different in the game, and it looks different in the dream. There's vulnerability that is a game play when it's weaponized or when it's manipulative, when it's not connected to source. And then vulnerability is very different when it is connected to source, okay?
Just before we continue, Troy.
Yeah.
I just have an impulse in myself to go even deeper in the definition of vulnerable to the level of the wound itself, as the Latin root refers to. What is a wound? To me, a wound would be there is a system clearly encapsulated from its environment. There's some force destroying that encapsulation, and I would rather view it from that system thinking point of view. So you have something and it gets destroyed and then bleeding, right? Bleeding.
Yeah, well, okay. Where you were taking me, or where I was thinking, and whether this connects or not, is that people are teaching and believing that if I show you my vulnerability, where I'm willing to be destroyed, there's a little catch in there. As long as I show you that, you won't destroy me. You won't dare. I'll show you my fragility. You'll open your fragility. Or this is like, now that I've shown you all my guts and wounds, don't shoot me. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot me when I'm down. So in a way, I see it as a trick. I can be the CEO, come to the board meeting, be really vulnerable. Oh, I'm really sad. Oh, I'm this. I show my tears. I'm so raw. I tell you a secret. And now no one's going to attack me because I showed my vulnerability.
Yeah, you can weaponize vulnerability. Is that what you're saying? Weaponize
That's
or
right.
Shield it. Use it as a shield.
So the only reason I would show you all my wounds and put myself at risk of being destroyed is there is an expectation or a hope that you won't destroy me then.
So it's
How
an expression.
dare you?
So it's
like a non-gentleman's agreement. Do you understand?
So
you're no longer honorable if you destroy me, kick me when I'm down. Go ahead, Benjamin, sorry.
Sorry, I was interrupting you. Trust. So it's an expression of trust.
This is a way to build trust, but I see it as a manipulative way to build trust because it's still conditional.
Yeah.
Now,
otherwise, so I depend establishment of trust between both of us on my wounds.
Now, I'm saying if there's an expectation for reward or recognition. So when I'm vulnerable, and the only reason I'm doing it is because I expect for you to acknowledge my bravery, acknowledge my fragility, and reward me for being so courageous, right? Now I'm going to get what I want. Or now I'm going to get away with what I want to get away with. Do you understand?
But you can be vulnerable without showing it off to others.
Sure, I'll look like a hero. Now, what I'm saying here is that's the manipulative way to be vulnerable or to use vulnerability, okay? That is a non-resilient use of vulnerability. Now, it is possible to be vulnerable while connected to source and while being resilient, and that looks completely different, okay? Mm-hmm. It's not based on conditions. So that is called invulnerable vulnerability, which is an essential quality, which I'll define shortly. So we've been talking game and dream, so I just have to show what we mean by game and dream. So we've got two people in their own realities. Now, you all here have seen this before, so it's for those watching the recording that this is the benefit. We're always recognizing each other and acting upon each other. We're in recognition creation. I see you, therefore I've got to act and create something to affect you. And we're trying to affect each other and create together. And that just keeps going around and around in a circle. I see something over there, I got to create something around it, about it. And what we don't realize is we're actually not really experiencing each other. It's a false connection because we're each still in these solid separate bubbles bouncing off each other. Why? Because we're both coming from judgment. So I'm not actually experiencing you, I'm experiencing my idea of you because I'm in a closed environment here. This is my beliefs, my preferences, my defaults. And it's almost like you're appearing on the screen of my bubble, and it's according to what matches with this inner reality, okay? This is why people are saying be vulnerable, because what they want is for you to open that bubble so there can be more real, truthful relationship here, okay? Now, how do we do that? Because what if you're coming from a closed reality and now I suddenly open and you come pouring in? Well, now you're invading me. You're conquering me. That's the risk of being vulnerable, right? And you might still be closed. So that's a win and a lose, right? This is what we mean by game level. We've got two people trying to conquer each other, okay? Because they're both unwilling to open their bubble. And they're saying, you open first. I won't be vulnerable until you're vulnerable. Now, how do we get into a more fluid, truthful relationship? It's through acceptance. Meaning, what I see over there is what is over there. I might not like it. I might want to change it, but I'm not going to act from judgment yet. I'm first going to recognize what's over there. Of course, I'm going to judge it, but then before I act upon it, meaning go into creation, I'm going to move into acceptance. Find the way to say, it is what it is. That is me making the first step to start opening my bubble. That feels vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can put my fascination over there. Now I'm no longer acting from what I believe you are. I'm starting to investigate what you are through fascination. I'm willing to experience who you are, and then I can be influenced. I'm allowing you to affect me. That's even more vulnerable because now I'm willing to be penetrated. I'm willing to allow you to influence my reality, okay? That takes a degree of humility. And with appreciation, I'm finding value in what I'm receiving. I'm not judging it and throwing it away. I'm finding the value in it. And then I can begin to enjoy. And it's the very act of me taking you in with appreciation that you now start opening your bubble in reaction, like a mirror. And that is what now creates a larger bubble. It's a shared bubble of reality where we can now engage with each other, participate, and co-create from each other. Okay. Now we're in a more resilient space where we're not acting and reacting from judgment, but we're coming more from acceptance, fascination, and appreciation, enjoyment. These are the 8 stages of truthful relationship, or I would call it fluid relationship, okay? That in order to do that, you must be resilient. You've got to be connected to resilience before you even move into the acceptance. Because why would I be willing to open myself to influence? Okay. And the fascination helps me gather the appreciation to find what is of value over there instead of me throwing the whole thing away. Once you're able to do this, you're able then to become discerning. And that's what the next webinar is going to be about, how to cultivate discernment. Okay. Discernment is the next level of acceptance, where once I've moved through acceptance, I can decide what I keep and what I throw away, but it's because I've already taken it in, experienced it, and then I can say, yes, it's for me, no, it's not for me. Prejudgment means before I've even experienced it, I reject it, throw it away, and I want to change what's over there. That's where we toggle, okay? So I'm calling it fluid relationship here. This is fluid relationship. This is oppositional relationship. I'm prejudging and trying to create from that. I'm creating from my judgment, not from the experience. These steps, 8 steps, allow me to first experience what's over there, then I can discern what I'm creating from. And that demands resilience and humility to be able to do that. That demands that before I even open my bubble, I'm connecting to source within myself. So this goes right back to part 1. I'm finding congruency within myself, opening myself to source. From source, I can now start to look over there. And before changing anything over there, I can begin to accept it. Why can I accept it? Because I'm connected to source. I'm okay. I still may not like what's going on over there, but I can say it is what it is. Now let me find out what it's all about and see what I can learn from in there. And from source, I'm seeing there must be and there is a natural benevolence over here. There is something pure, natural. This over here is also in some way coming from source. That's what I'm looking at. Okay? So I can accept the behavior of anger and they're attacking me and they're criticizing me. When I'm connected to source and I'm feeling resilient and okay, I can say, fine, that's what they're doing. I don't like that they're attacking me, criticizing me, and that they're angry, but there's got to be a reason here. They're coming from something pure. Maybe it's really distorted right now, but what is over there? And I can engage with my fascination to find out this person is totally passionate. This person actually maybe cares about me. Oh, well, now maybe I can enjoy being with them. Already that starts to diffuse their attacks and their criticisms because I've let them in with some acceptance. They'll feel it, they'll see it. It will already start to calm them down. They'll start dropping into this more open level, this more fluid level. They'll start connecting to source. They'll start coming from a more pure place.
So we have a mirror effect.
A mirror effect. Exactly.
And that mirror effect happens as a consequence of source connected vulnerability, leading to a boundary shift.
That's right.
And then the boundary shift affects different dynamics, sets into motions of flow of energy. One nuance of that is a mirror effect.
That's
so
right.
It's a reciprocal thing. So it's quantum
natural reciprocity.
It's,
yes.
It's like quantum physics.
That's
Once
right.
it's happening on the one side, it's just appearing on the other side as well.
That's right. It's a shift. Yeah. And it's like an entanglement that starts happening. Yes.
So what you describe with the 8 stages of fluid relationship is not, for me, seems to be nothing but describing different flow states of the energy of the shift of boundaries from an encapsulated state towards one of a unified state.
This is, yes, steps that move us into a unified state of co-creation.
But we do that by anticipating, at least it seems to me, anticipating the opening of the bubble. And we do that with vulnerability by connecting it to our source.
Connect to source, feel the resilience, be okay with yourself, and then be willing to be okay with them as they are. And that's the first step of opening your bubble. It's through that initial acceptance.
And this already sets in
in the reciprocal flow, so on my side as well as on the other side.
Yeah.
Both ways, or is it just happening
Okay.
initially
So
from my side?
this is the riskiest phase right here, acceptance, because
I
I'm
just
now
felt that. I just felt that that's the most critical phase.
most critical and riskiest because I'm opening myself up, meaning I'm being first to take a bullet. That's why I'm saying you need to be connected to source first to genuinely do this. You can't fake it.
Is this a death door or not?
It is. It's
Oh.
like moving through a death's door.
So
That's what it will feel like. For
just to
me,
be precise here, if you don't mind, is it like or is it a death door?
it is. Well, depending on the
Depends on
extremity
the
of the
person.
situation. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And on how much the person is already connected to their resilience source.
Right.
Okay.
How much is used to do it.
I'm saying practice these steps with simple things. Don't face your mortal enemy to try this for the first time. Okay? I mean, try it with simple things. Simple things that maybe irritate you a little bit. And then just move into, I know it irritates me and it is what it is. There's nothing I need to do about it right now. Just how am I okay letting it be what it is? That's the first movement into acceptance. That's where you start.
Start with the small irritations of life.
Yeah, start with the small irritations of life. Yeah.
In this acceptance is not only the acceptance for the other, it's also acceptance of myself accepting the other.
Yes, and yourself accepting your own
and
judgments
forgiving
of
myself
the other.
For
That's right.
certain things.
And I want to be very clear again, acceptance does not mean roll over and be a doormat.
Yeah.
It means a simple thought. It is what it is. No need to change it. Okay? That's what we mean by acting. Creating from judgment means I don't accept it. It needs to be different. Therefore, I'll do something about it. I need to change it, modify it, or expect it to change before I will accept it. This is moving into a level of unconditional acceptance, okay? You're frowning at me. I don't like it when you frown at me, but the simple fact is you're frowning. Okay, you're frowning. Done deal. That's it. And for me to be resilient enough to say, okay, I accept that you're frowning. I am not even asking whose fault or why or anything. It's just a frown is a frown. It's that simple. Not easy to do, okay? Because you are letting go of something in order to do that. Once I start putting my focus over there and I'm stop listening to my own projections about you, okay, that's going to start affecting the other person. Not only am I accepting you, but now I'm willing to explore, investigate openly.
Practically, when we do that, it's kind of endowment. Yeah, it's like looking the other person through new lenses.
Right. And this is not about, oh, you're frowning, I'm curious. No, there's no barrier here. You're frowning. What's it like to frown? What's fascinating about what's going on inside you? You know, my whole focus is there. It has nothing to do with me. It's not about, look how curious I am. Look how fascinated I am. Look at me, I'm accepting you. There's no expectation of anything in return here. Do you guys understand? It's an unconditional focus over there, full fascination. I'm jumping in wholeheartedly, okay? Now, this is where they start to open their bubble, is when I'm not only fascinated, but I'm taking something back in and I'm willing to be changed by you or influenced by you, or just, it's just, I'm willing to be affected by you without defense here. That immediately, that moment is when they calm down and start to drop and start to open, okay? It starts neutralizing what's going on. That's now where we can get on each other's level, where there's a level of enjoyment from my end, meaning I'm fascinated, I'm taking it in, I'm affected, and I find value in it, and now I begin to enjoy you.
Question here.
Yeah.
Is that a side effect to connect to the source, or is it a direct effect?
It will be a direct effect. Now, each of these stages builds more and more resilience and enables you to connect more and more to source, okay? If you're feeling blocked, like, no, I can't find anything to appreciate, move backwards, back to simple acceptance, okay? Recognize, okay, what's there now? What am I judging? Now, what am I okay to accept? And move through. Don't force your way through. But moving through each stage not only builds more resilience within yourself, where it's relaxing you more, and you're relaxing into source more, but for each next stage, the previous stage increases. For a little bit of fascination, I am increasing my acceptance. A little bit of appreciation brings more fascination. A little bit of enjoyment brings even more appreciation, okay? And yeah, that's where I find the mirrored effect begins in this enjoyment phase. When I can find a genuine enjoyment in the person. I could be arguing with you. You could be attacking me, criticizing me, frowning. But when I'm moving through these stages and I'm letting you be exactly who you are, not trying to change or manipulate you, but I can actually start to find enjoyment in the argument because I'm seeing more into source within myself, source in you. I may be realizing you're really fighting for something here. Oh my God, there's a real love and connection here you're really fighting for. There's a real passion. I can really appreciate that. Actually, I'm enjoying debating and arguing with you because you're in a way, you're teaching me something. You're making me smarter. And I'm really enjoying, this is a very intimate connection now. That might sound weird, but the point is I'm allowing myself to allow you to be yourself. I'm allowing us to be authentic, okay? Things start to shift, things start to settle into a more essential nature because we're having a truer relationship where we're not bouncing off each other's ideas of each other. We're actually bouncing off or co-creating our experience of each other. That's the difference here. It's a very subtle thing. And this is what we're calling dream level. This is where we're fluid. Now we're complementary to each other. It's not about conquer or be conquered. This is, okay, you disagree, because we have opposite opinions. So how are both opinions working together to create something greater? How are both opinions actually co-creating each other? How is black and white coexisting? Okay. How is hot and cold complementary? Because up here, it's either hot, it's either cold, it's either black, it's either white, and it cuts our reality in half, and we don't have a true connection because it's all conditional. Okay? Mm-hmm. So the simple act of acceptance builds resilience. It brings automatic vulnerability and humility, but it also creates fluidity. This acceptance is not fake. This is an acceptance that is first connected to source, your own permanence and timelessness. Okay? Mm-hmm. And that brings us to what we're calling the 4 levels of truth. And what we're looking at is here gameplay, dream play, okay? Dream space is, it's an unconditional space. We're fluid with each other.
The dream space, the essential quality can show itself.
Yeah, where essential qualities can express themselves freely. There's no conditions put upon it. And that those essential qualities can pass back and forth, okay? We still can hold opposite positions, but it's understood that we complement each other. this red line means, okay, now we're getting cut off from source. That means I've sealed up my bubble. Now I have to be in control of everything within myself, which means in order to survive, I'm going to have to control or fight you. Now everything is in opposition, okay? And it's a very limiting point of view or story. That's my identity. That's my ego identity cut off from source. And then I meet other ego identities and we either agree or disagree. And therefore things will feel in opposition to me. This is a survival game. This is all about rules and conditions. So when I'm coming from this place, I'm going to accuse you of not being authentic or accuse you of not being vulnerable. Or I'll try to be vulnerable and be your version of authentic to suit you so I can get you opening up so we can agree or so I can conquer. Or avoid the opposition and competition.
The red line, would you name that the threshold of where the invulnerable vulnerability is at?
I would name this the line of disconnect.
So that's a no or a yes to my question, just from my understanding.
I'm going to say it's a threshold, yes, but this has nothing to do with vulnerability or not. This has to do with connection to source. Below the line, we are connected to source. Above the line, we risk losing connection to source, okay?
So the concept of vulnerability lives in the green area.
Yeah, it lives in here. Yeah. And what we're doing with emergent essence dynamics is actually bringing source up through dream and into game and into story so that this red line can start disappearing, okay? So that it's okay to be complementary or oppositional, still connecting to source, meaning I can switch and change the games quite fluidly here, okay? I'm not stuck in one story, one game. Right.
So it's about the boundary shift and we are crossing the boundary.
Yeah,
more.
We're crossing this is the zone of disconnection from source to connection to source. All right, that's what I mean by this red line. So once we reconnect to source, we realize all our opposites are complementary, and then we can move into a unity consciousness when we let go of positions, let go of ego identity. At essence, there is no identity anymore. It's like we become just this fluid water that can go anywhere, and water is water, right? So vulnerability and authenticity can exist here in dream and source. Vulnerability and authenticity can exist here in story and game, but there's a completely different feel. One is because they're run by conditions, meaning I have something to gain or lose, or it's unconditional. Gain and lose has nothing to do with it, okay? So what is vulnerability at game level? It's a validation game. I'm using vulnerability to gain validation. What does that look like? I'm seeking recognition and reward. There's an expectation that once I show my vulnerability, you're going to reward it or at least recognize it, okay? By doing that, I can seek to control you or the situation because I'm instilling a fear. You now need to be compassionate towards me. If you don't, you're a bad person because you're not acknowledging my vulnerability. Do you guys get that? It's a very subtle game. This is called conditional vulnerability, all right? Feel free to disagree. Or think of those moments when you've seen this happen. And it can look amazing, okay?
Yeah.
But it's still a game.
I'm the victim. I'm the victim here, you know?
Not only I'm the victim, but look, I'm the victim. I'm not going to be a victim anymore. I'm going to show my flaws, my rawness.
I'm already
now
suffering. How can I do
I'm
this?
becoming a hero for doing this. Do you understand? Make me into a hero because I'm so brave. I'm coming from such a fragile place. Oh my God, you're so strong and brave and courageous. Okay, do you understand? There's this expectation that you're going to admire this or worship it or make it into a heroism. Okay. Well, you're going to say something else there, Paul?
It reminds me of the cancer card. Sure.
By the way, I'm sure people listening are hating what I'm saying. And, okay. Because this busts a big game that people play. This does sound cynical. So if the vulnerability is used for heroism or gaining importance or used for flattery or to gain flattery, this is a game. Or if it's used for collusion, okay? Let me be vulnerable. Let me share you all my secrets. Now you know things nobody else knows. I'm actually making you feel important, okay? And you're like, oh my God, this person is lowering their mask and their shield, right? So, you know, it's becoming infectious, okay? I'm pulling you into something. I can be baiting you. Here's another one. It can turn into an indulgence of pain. I'm so ashamed and I'm so guilty and look at me, I'm so fragile. This is like, don't shoot me, forgive me. I was so wrong and I feel so ashamed. Or I'm showing you all my pain, but it becomes indulgent. When it's indulgent, again, there's that expectation of reward or stimulus. Oh, it feels so good to overshare with you. Do you guys get that? I mean, we can be intimate and share and show emotions and then acknowledge each other about how encouraging we are and how courageous we've been, but that can become addicting. Yeah. And it's not strengthening ourselves. It's starting to create a dependency, a codependency. And then we begin like, I have to use my fragility to gain intimacy. Now I'm actually weakening myself. I'm becoming more and more fragile. And now I'm depending on your recognition that, look at me, I'm so fragile. And then I start to self-inflict pain in order to get the stimulus. So it becomes emotional vampirism after a while. Do you guys get this? Where it can lead? Okay. I'm saying here's where it can go into extremes, all right? But one main thing is it puts up a shield. I'm being vulnerable. So like, I'll start the email this way. Oh, I really struggled and I had a hard time, but I decided I'm going to open my heart and be truthful and honest. And here's what I have to say. This feels very vulnerable, what I'm about to do. Okay. What that means is don't criticize me, don't challenge me, don't judge me. Because I'm making the first move, putting the step forward, fragile and vulnerable place, please listen to what I'm saying and accept it. Don't criticize it. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm about to basically criticize you. Do you guys get that? Or do whatever, or it's a veiled attack or whatever. But what it's saying is just swallow what I have to say. Don't give me feedback. The only feedback I want is the acknowledgement of my bravery. Does that make sense? It's conditional. Does this ring true or not? About don't shoot the messenger.
It sounds true. Like especially
I've seen it done many times. Just go read things on Facebook, comments and shit like that. Vulnerability posts. Go look for those.
Help in order to be able to do what I'm doing. Like it's really, I can't. This, which is why I'm suffering so much. So
yeah,
like,
look at how I suffer, and please celebrate that and admire because I'm so strong in my suffering.
Yeah, some support at least. Right. Otherwise, I can't. I really would like to, but you see.
Yeah. So a lot of this is fishing for admiration. Okay. I had to muster so much courage to share this very personal thing. Please celebrate and admire me. And that's exactly the response people get. Oh my God, you're so courageous. Oh my God, I was moved to tears. Right? And it's fragility to fragility. We're both vibrating on fragile levels, but we're making heroes out of it. So it feels good. And we're getting stimulation out of that.
So this imitation of connection to source is not source.
No, it's not source. It's an imitation. It's a good way to putting it. It's an imitation of source. Look, I look so vulnerable and it feels so good, but it's dependent upon your response to me.
So
Meaning,
you're not acting from source. Then you're after an imitation of source. If you are acting from source, from a context was connected to source, you act without directedness towards something that looks like source. So what is the subtle nuance then to discriminate or to discern?
we're going to get to that because
Or is that the next webinar?
No, it's the next slide. Just to go quickly, when we play this validation game or use vulnerability as a validation game, the imitation of source, there's certain addictions or negative effects that can happen where we get self-indulgent, or it's all about self-satisfaction. And what that does is it aggravates our own inner fragility. I'm getting in touch with my fragilities, but I'm actually indulging in the fragility, making me even more fragile. Do you understand? So, and because I'm expecting that recognition and reward, I'm creating codependence. And I'm using my fragility to gain your approval. That's an erosion of willpower. Meaning, I'm not going to act unless you approve. And if I'm not getting my way, I'll show even more fragility until you approve. And then, if I'm not getting that, I'm going to kind of just erode away and disappear and say, nobody cares. And then I'll use that as a vulnerability too, until I find someone that's going to approve. Then I can act. I won't unless I get the approval. So I'm losing my autonomy because I'm weakening my will, because I'm becoming more dependent upon approval than making a simple choice within myself. Does this make sense? That kind of logic there. What that's doing then is I'm avoiding responsibility. It's too easy for me to do something wrong, fail, or do something bad to you, and then say, oh, but hey, oh, I'm so sorry. And now I can cry and show my tears and say, I'm being so vulnerable with you. And I'm now emotionally manipulating you not to hold me accountable. All right?
Well, I've encountered one instance of this, a person who, so every appearance encounter I had with her was basically, oh, sorry, oh, I feel so sorry. So she was wrapping every situation in a sorry, right?
Right. And she's creating this massive shield in which she's basically saying, because I'm vulnerable, do not criticize me. Don't kick me when I'm down. That's what it's being used for. So remember, we define vulnerability. You are susceptible to being hurt, wounded, criticized. Yet these people who are saying, I'm being so vulnerable now, the very last thing they want is criticism. They need to realize when they are choosing to be vulnerable, they are opening themselves to criticism. And you'll know this is a game, is when they start shaming you for any criticism. Do you understand? I'm being vulnerable. How dare you criticize me? Okay? That's how you know it's a game. That's a big tell. Okay? What happens too is there can be an erosion of boundaries. There's a loss of boundaries or a lack of boundaries where they get so involved in this, they think I'm now obligated to invite everyone into my inner sacred circle. I wear my heart on my sleeve, tell all my secrets. There's no anymore. And then there can be an expectation that everyone else shouldn't have boundaries either, right? It should be a total open space. And what does that cause? Exhaustion. Where's my me space? I have no time or space for me. I don't even know myself anymore. I'm just this one big bleeding open wound or raw material, and there's no privacy, no sacredness, nothing. That gets exhausting because I can't recharge. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay. So what is invulnerable vulnerability? Now I'll give you some of the distinctions here. It is an essential quality. There's 10, and it's one of them, which means it's an unconditional state. It's permanent, it's timeless. There's no rules and conditions upon this. So what does it mean to be invulnerable? Means I cannot be harmed. Therefore, I can be totally open, generous, radiant. I'm connected to source, so things can move in through me and out. It's like a hand moving through water. You can't hurt water. All you can do is move through it. So there's a natural resilience. Because I cannot be harmed, I'm willing to be attacked. I'm impenetrable in the sense that you can shoot all your bullets, but they don't harm me. Therefore, I am open to criticism. I can be criticized, and I won't be hurt by the criticism because I'm connected to source. I am resilient. Therefore, I can afford to be open and generous, and I just radiate that quality around me. I don't protect anything because there's no need to protect anymore. I'm absolutely resilient. So I'm affected, influenced, penetrated. I'm connected to source. I know who I am. So you can criticize me. I can listen to the criticism. I can consider the criticism, but it's not going to crush me or crumble me because I still do know who I am. And I possess humility that I can learn from your criticism. I can work with your attack, and I can be fluid with it. So there's a natural resilience and fluidity, and that is what the strength is. It's not about, look at me, I'm vulnerable, I'm so open, therefore I am strong. No, it's not about the opening. It is about the ability to be fluid and resilient while being open. That is the strength. Does this make sense?
Mm. Yeah.
What feels different here?
I'm able to give more. I'm able to put in more into the moment.
Yeah.
Like in areas which would be too dangerous if I would just do it for the game. So for instance,
I want you to notice something here. Where is the word courage? It's not there.
It's not there, probably because it's the gameplay.
Well, why wouldn't it be there?
Like it doesn't take courage because I can't get harmed. So where's the courage?
Where's the fear?
Yeah.
There is no fragility. Therefore, there is nothing to fear. I'm completely connected. I have a feeling of permanence and timelessness. Therefore, there's nothing to protect, defend, or hoard. I have everything to give. It's a limitless state.
It really sounds illogical to the ego person.
When I'm in this state of invulnerable vulnerability, I don't need you to acknowledge me. I don't need you to say, oh, look how brave you are. It doesn't feel brave. It just feels natural. Do you understand? And there's a natural generosity of spirit here.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I'm able to reconcile boundaries with transparency because this is my inner state. Therefore, again, you may not accept what I'm saying. You may reject what I'm saying. You may criticize what I'm saying. I'm still in a state of invulnerable vulnerability. Therefore, I can respect your boundary. I can even put up a boundary and say, okay, fine, then we're not engaging anymore. I'm still willing to be transparent with you, or I will decide how much information I give to you, but I'm not expecting you to like me, approve, recognize, reward. And I'm not expecting to control you either, okay? I let you have your behaviors. This has nothing to do with revealing all my secrets. This has to do with me being absolutely fluid with you from a baseline of acceptance. Does that make sense?
Yes, but
Yeah, go ahead.
To me, that's a description of a state.
It's a state of being. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm interested in is in the subtle wrongs. So we are basically not working, not operating in states. We are working in shifts, in movements.
Yeah.
So what is the tendency towards invulnerable vulnerability at dream level compared to the game level?
I'm going to put conditions on boundaries. I'm going to put conditions on transparency, levels of transparency, levels of boundaries. I'm going to put conditions and obligations here, whether that's on myself or to you. So when
I have to look at the context. So
look at the context.
Which kind of context is that happening in? If
Yeah.
the context is really conditions, boundaries, then it's game level.
So I can be in a state of invulnerable vulnerability, and I can totally accept that you're a stinky person, and I'm actually not interested in engaging with you because you're an emotional vampire to me. I'm not going to change you, but when you invite me out to drinks and I know that you're going to tell me your story for 2 hours and not ask one question about me, and I'm deciding today I don't feel like going through that. I have no problem putting up that boundary, and I can be transparent with you, and I'm going to say, no, I'm not in the mood to go out with you, or no, I'm not going to do it. And I'm not going to feel like, oh, I have to be, sacrifice myself and be so transparent. And I'm perfectly prepared for you to get angry and to call me this and that and the other, and call me a bad friend because you're in trouble and you need my help and all that stuff. And I'm going to say, hey man, I'm here for you, but not today. I'm not putting obligations on myself nor on you. This is what I mean. And I'm not feeling any less authentic. I'm not feeling any less vulnerable. It's a really, really, really subtle, nuanced thing. I hope you understand what I'm getting at here, because a lot of times I'll feel like, oh, I must please you in some way, therefore I can't say no. Because if I'm in the state of invulnerable vulnerability, then anything should be able to happen to me and I shouldn't, die from it. So therefore I should be able to always say yes, but no. Discernment comes with this too. I can choose or choose not to engage with the game.
Instead of being dependent on a specific and only this direction of events.
That's right. So I'm saying invulnerable vulnerability includes boundaries and transparency, masks, shields. All of it works together when connected with source. Why? Because I am not my mask. I am not my boundary. I am source. And masks, boundaries, shields, they're expressions of that source, but I'm not attached to them. I'm not rigid. I'm not dependent upon them. When you have invulnerable vulnerability, you can wear any mask you want. It doesn't create your identity. It's a means of expressing. That's it. And I can be fluid with all kinds of masks, and I can shift the boundaries when needed. I'm not losing, I'm not gaining.
So those being razor. So sorry, Paul, you go.
Okay, yeah, because it serves the purpose of guiding the expression of source. So which is from where it can gain this great feeling of I'm invulnerable here, because all I'm going to do is bound to be happened anyway, and I'm just helping it to be done better. So it's rational to feel invulnerable there, and it's very good to connect this topic to authenticity, because it's what we can gain. Like the invulnerable vulnerability. Now I understand why you put it between dream and source. We can gain it through authenticity, or we're going to gain it if we're doing it correctly.
When connected to source, and when we keep that open channel and be congruent and be self-disciplined, will enter into a state of invulnerable vulnerability, will naturally feel invincible when connected to source. Now, that's not an arrogant thing, because now that I'm invincible, I can afford to be open and transparent and generous. And there's no expectation to receive something back for doing that. So the way to think about it is I radiate that quality. Therefore, I can receive all the arrows of persecution. It's almost like I'm a radiant pillar of fire. Those arrows can come, they're going to burn up, because those arrows don't kill me. I still am at source. Therefore, bring it on. I can take the first bullet. It might sound counterintuitive. It doesn't mean I'm expecting to receive bullets. Nothing like that. And I'm not expecting to be admired for this. So this is, again, you mentioned earlier, Alina, the Jesus quality. If I have an expectation to receive something back for my sacrifice, okay, that is a game.
So you're dealing, basically.
Yeah, I'm dealing something out to get something back.
So I'm doing that, and I expect this, and otherwise I'm not feeling fine. So
Right.
if you're not dealing, so you're in that unconditional context, that's more dream level.
That is more dream level.
So catch yourself being a dealer in everyday life.
Yeah, what are you dealing? And what are you?
Am I dealing here? So what am I dealing in here
drugs.
for? Well,
Yeah.
it's even more subtle than drugs, because drugs you are aware. Oh, I know what I'm doing.
Right. I mean, this is then where does martyrdom? What is martyrdom? Well, martyrdom has nothing to do with gaining recognition. It has nothing to do with, look at me, I'm a saint or a hero. It means I'm totally giving something up in order for something to be, for something that's greater than myself, and there's no it's a complete gift. Okay. I'm not expecting to get famous over this. Okay. It's an ultimate sacrifice. It's coming from, and why am I able to do this? Because look, I'm a total essence. I can do this. I just can. That's what the bodhisattva is. Of course, I could move on and get off the wheel of karma and move on to greater worlds, but no, I'm going to come back. I'm willing to serve. Why? Because I'm actually no longer affected by this karma. I might as well do something with it, and I can teach, I can help, and it's not that I'm going to get something in return. It is more, I'm at such a unity with everyone that we're going to raise the whole level of unity amongst each other. This is getting metaphysical, but if it makes sense what I'm saying.
That's the difference between the one who is expecting to go to the heaven.
That's right. If I do this,
okay,
I'll
if
earn
I
my
do
way
this,
to heaven. That's the conditional
or just
game.
being in essence, and you know.
Yeah.
So I
do something for you, you do something for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or I may become the bossy preacher who tells everyone.
Yeah, and this is where virtue signaling comes from.
So Troy,
Okay.
tell us, what are you expecting doing that EED stuff? What are you dealing in?
It's a way to dream.
Everything is a way to actually for us to reconcile all our stories and dramas and karma and be more in fluid relationship with ourselves and each other, so we can create something new, something different, so we can be really in co-creation instead of repeating. Let's just learn our lessons and move on, you know, and move to another level. That's really what it is about. We've been repeating the same stories for thousands of years. So when we move into this quality of invulnerable vulnerability, we have more of an open presence, we have fluidity in relationship, there's agility, flexibility, we're open to love and unity, there's a natural humility, a natural acceptance of things, no need to manipulate, we're autonomous, we're still willful, meaning I'm not giving up my will. I can willfully guide, but I'm also in response with humility and acceptance. Nobody has domination over me. I don't have domination over you. And there's a natural benevolence because of that feeling of unity. So there's also natural discernment. There's no malevolence here, okay? Anything you would want to add there on the effects or on what this does? Because of that natural invincibility, there's a natural openness. And I'm able to expose and be transparent from a resilient place. No expectation of something in return. So there is no harm actually going to be done in the end. Of course, I could protect myself if need be. But it's not about being obligated for anything. There's no manipulation here. This is like the samurai warrior. The samurai warrior approaches the fight or the battle from invulnerable vulnerability. This is why it doesn't cling to its sword. It stands there with an open presence. It's fluid and it's agile. It's naturally benevolent, meaning it won't attack first. But it certainly can be in response and defend, okay? And it can and will decide, okay, fine, take me. But there's a reason for that, if it will do that. It's not fearing death in the battle. It knows every moment it could die, but it also knows that it's permanent. It's beyond death. Is this making sense, or am I starting to jibber jabber?
Makes sense. Permanent because of death.
What we're overcoming here is fear of death. When we overcome fear of death, we move into this state.
We are really able to be responsible for what we've done, what we're going to do.
Without conditions, yeah. Yeah. There's the ultimate conclusion. Let's move into summary. I know we've gone a long time. Thank you guys. Again, I didn't expect to go this long, but I think it's worth it. So, authenticity begins with congruency and becomes genuine once we are connected to source. So there's two things happening. Create that congruent vessel and then open the channel to source. Let source come through that, okay? Because if I'm only congruent and not connected to source, I can be deceitful or duplicitous. I can be convincing and duplicitous. Do you understand? Invulnerability comes from a direct connection to source. It's an effect. It's an essential quality. It's generous, open, radiant, and grounded, while still able to be willful, resilient, accepting, and unconditional. So in a way, it's a living paradox. When we are practicing true vulnerability or invulnerable vulnerability, genuine authenticity, we can still be discerning. We can still hold boundaries. We can still say no, because there's no rules, conditions, and obligations here. You are in a congruent and resilient flow with everything. And that enables you to accept whatever surrounds you, including criticism. That means you're able to respond. True vulnerability and authenticity does not look for reward or recognition, and it does not seek to control. Okay. False vulnerability, disingenuous authenticity, they seek to control the situation and or gather strength. I'm using the authenticity or the vulnerability to gather more strength, more validation. It creates conditions to increase its own self-empowerment, security, validation, at a cost to others. That's the vampirism. I'm showing you my fragility so I can gain more strength from your admiration or your sympathy, okay? That's how I'm empowering myself. I'm putting myself in this low status, victim, fragile position so you can raise me up. There is an expectation of reward. If you have a feeling of somebody being vulnerable with you because there's an expectation for a reward, you can be sure it's a false game going on. They may think they're being genuine, but this is a manipulation. I know that's harsh, but take that in and investigate it for yourself to see if there's truth in that. When you are cultivating resilience within and you're engaging with others from that dream space, using those 8 stages of fluid relationship, there is no need to be vulnerable or authentic. It is automatic. It happens naturally. So it's not even a concern. Am I being vulnerable? Am I being authentic? No, when you're connected with that source, that resilience, and you engage with acceptance, fascination, appreciation, enjoyment, it's all happening naturally. Nothing to think about. So practice those 8 stages of fluid relationship with the easy stuff first. That helps build resilience. It helps lower your own shields, and it invites a flow of that dream space. It lowers the barriers of others, but don't go into it with that expectation. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy the mirror effect, but don't expect that mirrored effect. Just let it happen. And then masks, boundaries, authenticity, and vulnerability can all work together when they're connected to source. I will refer you to webinars, I think it's 7, that's masks, boundaries, and sacred space. I go into that in detail. And the next webinar is going to look at discernment, wisdom, and intuition. It's a further extension of this. Because how do we accept things, but then make a decision? Yes, not for me. Yes, for me. That is what discernment is. It's about making choices. It is back to judgment, but it's a different kind of a judgment. Okay, it's like next in Buddhism you have acceptance, and then next level to that is discernment. All right, that is choosing to engage or not engage with something, but still from a foundation of acceptance. And then how do we access wisdom and intuition beyond logic and drawing wisdom from source, etc. So there you have it. And that's on September 2nd. What do you walk away with? What is feeling
Really,
inspiring from all of you?
yeah, what really sparks my attention is vulnerability as something that's guiding from source, like the expression that comes from source. And I really like to put this in contrast to the one who's only dealing with the situation as good as possible and who is just imitating the essence of vulnerability in order to get the most stable common ground, like the protector type from the Enneagram.
Mm-hmm.
While the truthful or the fluid vulnerability just gets endowed on you automatically when you come from source.
Mm-hmm.
So I will play around with that concept more from this level of understanding.
And play around with it, give yourselves breaks, let yourself go back to game level. That's a natural state for us as well. The dream space feels less natural, but we can cultivate ourselves to enter that and train ourselves. And that's what EED is all about. It's about how to willingly access that space, sustain it, and return to it, and have acceptance of game level as well, so that and reconcile how the two can work together. So.
And I really like how very rational it is to be invulnerable, coming from
Vulnerability, yeah.
because
Tough to say.
it is, but it's then when you are it's not so tough anymore. While you know that you're very tough because you're connected to timelessness, to the higher being, however you want to call or see it, and while being connected to it, you very well know that it is like that is expressing itself anywhere. So you can very rational be like, okay, nothing can touch me, because you have a sense, which is why I like your next topic. You have a sense of your surrounding, a better sense.
And I want to be really clear. Nothing can touch me. It is not an arrogant statement. If it moves into game, it will become arrogant. But in dream space, it's nothing can touch me. Therefore, I can respond and I can radiate and I can be generous here. Okay, and I can be adaptable here. That's what we mean by the I cannot be destroyed. There's a liberation there, okay? And I cannot be destroyed even if I am destroyed. Therefore, fine, I'm willing to be destroyed. And I can be creative. I can do everything but get destroyed, but I'm not fearing being destroyed, okay? If that makes sense. I just want to underline that. What else do you guys take away? Final words here.
Also, it makes sense because it's so very rational, because you're not fearing getting destroyed, because I really want to underline how rational it is from that point of view. I'm not getting destroyed because I am it, and when I just follow this, like, it's very, very unlikely that something's going to happen to me.
I am permanent, timeless. I'm connected to source. I'm part of a unity. I am the unity, things like that, right? So it takes you beyond the level of closed ego, protective ego, okay?
The ego feels protected here,
Yeah.
which is not because it feels just from vulnerability.
Yeah. Alina, Benjamin,
Well,
anything further to say?
It's just a very good reminder that never bring in relationships too much expectations. I mean, conditioning, yeah, conditioning certain expectations from I don't know how to say, but this is what what I'm taking from here.
Okay. Yeah, and not saying it's easy to move into an unconditional space and relationship. I mean, this is why we have the Reconciling Conflict course. This is what Module 2 is all about, is learning about that game kind of behavior and how to toggle between game, dream, game, dream. We're not here to eliminate game, but you have more freedom in the game when you bring a connection to source into the game. If you're disconnected from source, game is life or death. And there's a lot of fear in there. It's really driven by fear. When we start entering dream, we're driven more by essence. Fear isn't even there. We can have an awareness of what we can fear, but there is no fear of it. But we can be alert to it, and we're responding, okay? Christina was also saying, you know, sorry I missed it earlier, but it was, if we can talk more about source, but basically that's the level of all potential, unity, consciousness, infinite awareness. We don't necessarily live at that level, but we have access to that level, all right? And there are other webinars that deal directly with that. I think even webinar 1 is from 2020 is connecting to source. We also have another webinar about core vitality. So, and those are on the YouTube channel as well, EE Dynamics. You can find those other webinars that go into source in more depth. So any questions, feel free to contact me, Troy at essence-dynamics.com. Visit the website, essence-dynamics.com. And our next webinar is September 2nd, and we have courses coming up in October in Europe, in Frankfurt and Munich, October 9th in Frankfurt. And then the rest of the modules in Munich in November and December. And I'm finalizing some dates to do another online version of Module 1, which I would love to have around mid-September or late September, at the latest mid-October or something like that. So basically, like with Module 1, we learn how to access these states, and it continues throughout our other modules, but also applications of what can you do with these states of being. But it also takes a lifetime of practice. It takes discipline. It's not like you come and you take a module and then you're magically all fixed up. No, no, no. These tools need practice, need more examination, discussion, etc. It's a discipline. So what we're doing is teaching a discipline, but we're giving you choices and options so you're not a victim of the game anymore, that you can enter the dream and that you can have that mirrored effect for other people to enter fluid states with you. And you don't have to use things like vulnerability and authenticity in order to get your way, or in order to be validated, or in order to be thought of as a good person. We can stop weaponizing these things. And I think that will help us understand diversity and inclusion a lot more. And it'll start neutralizing our victim mindset when we can enter a state of invulnerable vulnerability and start letting go of status and victim persecutor status and start entering a dream space where we realize we each and all are of the same essence. That is where we enter a fluid unity consciousness, and then we can allow everyone to be who they are and realize we are all complementary to each other. And so
It feels like EED is connecting very well to let's say to modules that we have built in biologically and neuroscientifically from the
it's based on a natural system. It's based on hermetic principles. It's based upon the way nature is working, where nature is unity with diversity. So and there's where I'll conclude it. So I hope to see you all next month, and keep radiant and creative, resilient, and especially enjoy life.